Call this meeting to order. Item number 2, shared use path from Diamond Parkway to 14th Avenue. Shu.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time today. In our work session, our first item will be a report on our most recent updates for this shared use path that connecting from Diamond Parkway to 14th Avenue. I would like to introduce Laurel Harrington here, sitting next to me from Horner Schifrin, who's the rep from the company that we signed the contract with to conduct a feasibility study on this shared use path. She'll give us some updates on the background and the alternative routes and related next step.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So I'm with Horner and Schifrin, and you can see my team. Yeah, can you hear me? There we go. My team is here on this first slide. We are involved in the project in total, doing the project management, as well as design feasibility. We also have Trek on board with us as well, and they're helping us with coordination and technical assistance. SWT Design will be looking at the look and feel, and Shockey will be doing community engagement. So with this project, this is a feasibility study, so we're getting it to kind of a concept level stage and really looking at how this works. And this project is kind of technically complex in the place that we're trying to connect to. And it's funny, we're just trying to go from point A to point B, but there's a lot of variables, so hence the feasibility study. So we'll get into that. And please stop me at any time. I'm glad to answer any questions. So we have a good, robust steering committee that includes some of our members here and the mayor and other advocates and stakeholders throughout the area that have been involved in the bike planning and other representatives in the actual area, knowing that we're working with a lot of active businesses in this area, and we'll get to that area here in a minute. So currently, we are working towards a public meeting on September 28th. So we've been actively working on the feasibility aspects of this project throughout a number of summer months, and wanted to have a good public meeting time after school got back in session. We have everybody kind of back from summer vacations. So we'll be doing that on September 28th from 5:30 to 7, and I'll actually be at the Rabbit Hole. And so that has been advertised in various places throughout the city's communications and social media, and continues to be advertised. And we're hoping the draw of kind of getting a sneak peek of at least the main room of the facility of Rabbit Hole will encourage people to attend as well. So we may get a few interested parties, and then we'll be able to tell them about this project. The communication plan and engagement plan includes a lot of items here that we can go back to if you'd like, but it's kind of comprehensive, and Shockey is helping us do that so that we can get the message broad and wide. I mentioned some of the engagement that has been started, so there's a survey that's already been put out to the community through the various communication methods, and those are a couple pages of it kind of over the top of the communication plan that kind of show what that survey's like. So that's got a visual or a virtual interface, as well as we have some printed copies available as well. Through this process, working with our steering committee, we determined a vision and a set of goals. And that vision statement is, the City of North Kansas City will provide a safe and inviting shared use path between 14th Avenue and Diamond Parkway for users of all ages and abilities in order to connect neighborhoods, parks, residential and commercial development, destinations, and to contribute to a strong transit, bicycle, and pedestrian network. The goals include a lot of things that come out of that vision, including safe and comfortable connection. So this is meant to be for all ages and abilities, so it's meant to be an off-street connection. It's meant to connect a lot of the current destinations, but also anticipate what's coming in the district, what might be there in the future, including Rabbit Hole. It should be well lit and have a concrete path so that it's accessible and easy to maintain. And it will have that connectivity with future trail-oriented development possibilities, which has already occurred along Diamond Parkway. The path will be designed to minimize disruption of active businesses and maximize safety, and provide amenities, wayfinding, and trailheads so that people can find existing other connections and get to the destinations they're seeking. And we want to advance the implementation of the path with federal funding and other sources in an efficient manner. So this project came out of the bike plan, and that shows that green squiggle line there on the right shows that the Diamond Parkway cycle track. Thank you. And then that little line there, that purple line, as we know, along 16th Street, that has an existing on-street bike lane. And then that blue line is what was indicated as the shared use path. So then transitioning to some shared lane markings. So the project scope included these three alternatives. So this is what we're primarily studying in this feasibility study. So the orange indicates some of the existing facilities in place and some other existing planning with the shared lane markings in the orange. And then we were looking at those three different alternatives in the green, which was on MoDOT's right-of-way east of the highway. The yellow, which is looking to go into Duke Rentals property and parallel the highway right-of-way. And then alternative 3 is looking at a rail spur that exists as a kind of a skinny 17-foot wide spur that came up off of the main BNSF rail corridor there to the south. So those are the three alternatives. However, as we looked at this project, we wanted to kind of go back a little bit and see if there was anything else that we should be looking at, knowing that there's a lot of challenges in getting this connection made. So we looked at a couple other options there in the yellow and the purple, one being going down 16th Avenue, going west from Diamond Parkway, and then going down Iron. We also looked at the potential to be in a kind of a green setback for the polymer company that's there kind of right under that label that says option B. They have all that, that whole parcel all the way up from 14th to 16th. And then, of course, blue being representing the three other alternatives that we had originally scoped. Through this process, though, in talking with the steering committee, there was various challenges with 16th, really continuing on 16th because of it being a truck route for the district, to be the truck route for Armour, congestion, concerns about the on and off ramps from the highway that come on and off to 16th. And so there was a lot of concern with that, as well as the congestion on Iron and through those active businesses to make the connection. The purple has a similar concern because it still is right near all the on and off ramps at the highway. So the group really liked the original scoped alternatives, which are kind of the three represented by the blue line in a conceptual way. So that's really represented here. So this is where we've been headed with our discussions, and I'll get into some of that here in a minute. But generally what the scope of this project is to go from the cycle track on Diamond Parkway and connect to the Rabbit Hole on 14th. That's really what we're calling this scope, knowing that that's going to be a very important and desirable destination. Getting neighbors and residents and all the new apartment dwellers and everybody that's really on Diamond Parkway, and then also north and east of the highway, knowing that this is the way to get them safely into the area and to Rabbit Hole and other future opportunities. So the current status of feasibility, MoDOT, when in talking with them, there's a Interstate 29, 35, and US 169 Pell study that I'm sure you're aware of that they're currently undertaking. This is going to be kind of a year-long process, and right now they feel there's a potential widening of the bridge that may be needed and other associated widening of shoulders and other types of infrastructure, so they are not willing to undertake kind of, undertake this idea of us being in their right-of-way. The 16th Avenue option, we talked about that a little bit. Truck route for Armour, and then those on and off ramps, that's a concern for our steering committee and myself as well. BNSF, just on Friday, we were in contact with them, so just on Friday, right before the holiday weekend, let us know that they're not in favor of trails within their right-of-way. This is some of their language right here. Generally, they will only be considered if there's a permanent safety or infrastructure improvement, such as closing it on, at-grade closure, then they'll kind of deal with you. So right now, we're still in that kind of awkward feasibility stage of really determining where this, how to get this thing through. It's a tough spot. Also, I should say too, I'm looking to talk with Duke Reynolds. I've made initial contact, but I need to talk to the owner about the potential for the property that we will need there. And then really future considerations are really important to us. We don't want to just kind of land this thing kind of on 14th Avenue, not understanding what's coming next. So there's a lot of potential exciting things coming next, including the potential for streetcar on Swift. I understand that that's the preferred location for that. And understanding a future connection to Riverfront Trail is something to think about in the future. There's also potential really for 14th Avenue to have an off-road facility, off-street facility on the east side, and really continue that idea of a shared use path so that you really have an off-road connection all the way through to Swift.
Which side of 14th were you saying?
I think on the north side.
The north side, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, just looking at it kind of preliminarily, there's less kind of impediments on the north side. So, that's my update right now. Does anybody have any questions? And I've got some other kind of backup information we can look at if something comes up.
Go ahead, Councilmember Smith.
Thanks for the update. A couple things on the 16th Avenue. It sounds like the steering committee shares my view on that. Anything going under that, under the highway that will approach the on-ramp on the east side is an absolute non-starter. That's such a busy, congested spot. Sticking bikes, especially for all ages and ability levels, that's dangerous.
And you're concerned about the east side in particular?
Once you get under 35, that's where the trucks are crossing and going. I would prefer to keep bikes from crossing where the trucks are moving,
Yeah.
if at all possible,
There's a
on
lot of
16th, because
that
that is a major, major truck route. I guess a couple questions for the MoDOT plan. I guess we don't have a whole lot of information of that, but what it looks like where the line was, we were pretty far off the highway. How wide are they thinking of making this highway? Or are they just reluctant to consider anything until they've determined?
Well, so this is some of the information from Mark Fisher. This is his concerns right now, not knowing where they may end up. However, down at the bottom there with Christopher Shanks, there isn't any current plans to widen the bridge. It sounds like there was a replacement plan in 5 or so years. But the impact of the Pell study is not known yet.
Okay.
However, to me, in a kind of a long-term kind of proposition that this thing has, that could wrap up, and then we could have a potential yes, because
Okay.
then things might be known. And frankly, that's the path of least resistance. It's a little tricky still, again, because of the trucks. If we get really close to the corner, and I'll go back to a plan here.
We would still be west of where the truck
But we could-
off-ramp is.
Yeah, but we could actually probably cross sooner, probably more like where the rail spur is,
Okay.
and then, or where the current bike box is. And then we'd need some of the corner. We'd need to work with the, of course, there's a billboard there, which is always another tricky property acquisition situation. But if we could work with the corner, it's a nice wide, right of way, to your point. And and it fits well. We've already looked at it. The drainage even works for the highway. We were able to even maintain the swale and everything. So it actually fits in there nicely.
Sure.
And I think they were willing to entertain that idea until kind of understanding this Pell.
So we're looking at a year on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Second part, so the rail spur, is this an active in any way rail spur, or is it just it was, at one point, there was
At
a
one
rail line
point.
there, and
Yep.
so they're saying that they won't even consider it unless we put an at-grade cross block for something that's inactive. So it's basically a brush off, is what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Is there do we have any way to reach out to somebody who will sit down at a table and have a real discussion rather than just sending a set of stock language to say we're never going to consider this?
Yeah, that's always the interesting. We started out with a really positive kind of conversation, and then we got to the engineer level. And of course, I think that is it's a default position.
Yeah.
So I think we're looking to seek other ways to kind of tackle this. Right now, there's no actual rails there, so
Right.
it's part of the stone yard. It's just contiguous concrete there in the stone yard. So they're using it kind of as part of their scale, kind of environment. But they don't use that actual pavement that we'd like to use. And they actually, the conversation I had with them, they're kind of like, oh yeah, well let's see what it looks like, kind of thing. So we actually have an actual concept drawing that shows how it physically fits in there. So it fits nicely.
It looks like it would fit really, like that seems to be the better path because it stays further away from the highway.
Yeah.
It's I'm sure it's on grade because there's a pre-existing rail infrastructure that would have
Yeah.
flattened it out.
Yep.
So if I'm understanding correctly, like we had good positive momentum and then we hit something that stopped it dead.
We hit because the spur actually is, as far as we can tell, it's got a warranty deed with NT Realty, so they have some interest with it, but
Okay.
whether it can, it's still ultimately the rail's property, and they own that triangle piece adjacent as well.
Okay, so they essentially have final veto power on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see those conversations press again if possible because that's a good option. It's dead pavement right now, and maybe we work around talking to that engineer, somebody else who can, sit down in a room and look at something rather than just sending back stock language.
Yeah, we did get their kind of policy statement. So they were pretty,
I understand.
but it just becomes more fun. We get to try to see who else we can talk to. So I agree. I think these things to me are never dead, until they're really dead.
Thanks.
Further questions? Oh, there you go, Councilmember Tull.
I agree with everything that Jesse stated, and I like the plan. I'm hoping we can find a way to go forward and work on it. You had a slide that showed us with the existing pieces of the bike path that we have now. Keep going back.
Is that the one?
No,
The one that had the bike master plan
maybe
photo.
the bike master plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one.
this is
Yeah.
the one I wanted to look at, which I
Yeah.
brought up before, which is that we currently have a lot of segments and are largely not connected. So I think this is a really important piece to connect Diamond Parkway, but I would be very interested in, especially since it seems like this will take some time to get our work around with whomever we work with, to go ahead and connect 14th Avenue all the way over to Swift while we're doing this. Because we have a pretty robust bike lane on Swift down to 18th Street, and that would get us from both directions connected. Is
Yeah.
that a possibility, Shu?
That is certainly something we're going to explore, and that will involve some conversations with the business owners and the business councils in this town as well.
Okay,
And-
because I think we'll see ridership numbers increase greatly, especially with families, when we get some of these pieces connected.
Right. We currently do have, the bike master plan recommends SHAROs, which is the shared road lane markings, which is currently over there as our existing condition. But if you are indicating maybe continue it as a shared use path, am I understanding you correctly?
Are you talking about Swift?
I'm talking about 14,
14?
connecting Swift over to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that we were talking about a preliminary possible north end single-use path. Did you say that? That there was possibly on the north side of 14th Street room?
You said shared use path and extension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it appears, appears that you could work an off-street shared use path in on the north side of 14th Street. Of course, I'm just looking at it very,
Very preliminary. I
Preliminary,
know.
yeah.
I'm just saying,
and
as
there's
we're
various
looking at
things
it
in the way.
super preliminary, it's possible that we could look at it closer, given the time we're probably going to have that it's going to take for us to work with MoDOT and/or railroad.
So I was going to follow up on that. Generally, that's outside the scope area of this contract.
Correct.
So would that be
Yes.
an expansion of this contract, or do we have to put out another?
Right.
That's why I was asking Shu if it
Because,
was a
yeah, no, I think
possibility.
Generally, the direction she's going is elevating that to like a shared use or protected lane would make sense. as a connection.
This particular feasibility study will give us the opportunity to have the conversation with our targeted stakeholders. Those stakeholders will still be part of our, most important participants in this feasibility study. I don't see anything wrong to just mention it and open a dialogue to them, and again, at a very preliminary stage. So my understanding is we're looking at maybe a potential option for a shared use path, either at the north or in a different format. So I would say it is outside of our scope of work for this particular contract. So it's not Horner Schifrin's responsibility to cover this portion, but we can probably utilize this opportunity when we're conducting a public engagement and just open the dialogue again.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
So 14th and the south from 18th to 14th along Swift have been pretty big bones of contention in the past. Last time this came up, we had a room full of people that were very angry with me in particular. And I've been down to 14th with some of the stakeholders and had the preliminary discussions. It is going to be a very difficult, dedicated spot. Trucks park on both sides. They turn very widely around there. I'd like to see something eventually there, but it's going to be a really tough sell, given the stances that I've heard and what I've actually observed being down there. So before we maybe put it out publicly that it's, even a possibility, because that can take on a life of its own. As soon as you whisper it, it becomes posted on social media, and now we have a dedicated lane on 14th. I would be cautious as we proceed with that one, because it is a tricky spot. That's all.
I appreciate
Yeah,
your
good.
input.
Yeah, good points.
Nothing else. There you go. What
Great.
else did you have?
Yeah, thank you.
Was
Thank
that
you
it?
very much. Yeah, that's all I have,
Oh.
but thank you. Yeah, and
All right.
please, if you think of anything else, please let me know.
All right, thank you.
Forward to the
I
rabbit
would like
hole.
to remind everybody, we do have an online survey that's available on our community development website, and we do have our open house coming up on the September 28th. Again, thank you.
It's so wide, though. It's so wide, though. It's so wide, though. That's what I'm saying. You put it together. You put it together as part of the plan. Thank you. All right, next up, Gateway Signage Plan. Also Shu. It's community development night.
That's what Kim said. So she's sitting there happily listening to all.
Maybe she said it, now I'm repeating it, I don't know.
All right. So I believe I first received this request from Councilmember Smith about giving an update on where we're at for our signage plan. And I mentioned that I had to go back and dig all the details and find out all the information and talk to the sign company that we're currently working with. So I'm going to start from the beginning, where we are at. Just refresh some memories. And I know some of you guys already know every detail of this plan. Just bear with me. If I'm going slow, just let me know. So I would like to start with how the city completed a branding project back in 2014. And so back in 2014, my predecessor, Sarah Copeland, helped the city conducted a branding project, including our new logos and our branding slogan and everything related to it. So in that project, it resulted in a new branding position that we have the tagline, virtually urban, supremely suburban. And then I know some of you are in favor, some of you are not in favor of this slogan, but okay, I see a few shaking hands. Anyway, so one of those results is we actually come with this idea of having our gateway signage marking our 4.3 square mile of our city. So this way we can increase our recognition in this region as our destination and strong history of our North Kansas City. So a result of that is that we recommended 5, as you can see on this map, we recommended 5 locations with the gateway signage marking our north, south, east, and west, and of course our middle, which is bisected by the Interstate Highway 35. So during that plan, we do have our Armour Burlington Archway being built, and that's what we have existing today. However, all the other 4 locations, we only had a recommendation of the style and the materials for the signage, but those have never been built. So let's get over here to take a look at these gateway signage. These are the conceptual designs for our gateway signage. And the picture on top is what exists today. There is a little bit of deviation from what initially designed, but I would just say the existing signage pretty much went away with the design. And the bottom picture over here showed 2 different type of pylon sign or monument sign. The pylon sign is what I call that about 36 feet tall with a steeled top portion rectangle indicated NKC and the bottom rectangle portion mounted to the ground with some wood looking. And then the horizontal monument sign is about 40 feet long and about, I believe, 16 feet tall maybe. So these are similar designs, just in the vertical or horizontal way. So how these signs look at this location is listed over here by its dedicated name of those spots. This first one is the Children's Fountain. There is option A and B. So we will only have 1 gateway signage at this location, and it has not been decided at that time according to the plan whether it's going to be placed at the east or the west side. As you can see, there are 2 little green dots. So here is a 3D sketch showing what the street view would look like with this pylon sign located on the west side. And here is a second gateway signage at 10th and Burlington. This is an horizontal monument sign with the similar design theme. And again, this is the picture at the bottom indicates what the conceptual design look like in real life. And here's another location for the pylon sign located at Armour and I-35. It will be located at the north east corner of the existing Quick Trip. And this particular parcel has already been dedicated to the city with an easement access during the platting process for the Quick Trip. So this is the signage. We actually know the location. It's more accurate, and it will be easier to approach. And again, the design went with the pylon sign. Here's the last location for the gateway signage, which is located at Missouri 210 in Shoto Traffic Way. This is the east boundary of our city boundary. As you can see, there are two locations being indicated over here. One is located on the north side of the highway, and one is on the south. And again, it will only be one sign, which have not decided which one the particular location would be. So a lot of these signage during maybe the MoDOT's right-of-way, and my understanding is we have not had a deep conversation with MoDOT to verify the locations. So those are the gateway signage with those big bulk looking. And now we're getting to the second portion of that signage master plan, which is about wayfinding signs. So these are the wayfinding signs being planned out through that engagement process. And as you can see, most of the gateway signage are located in the downtown area, and a few of those are spread out along Armour Road. There is one wayfinding signage located on the 16th and Swift, as is indicated as D. So I know this map is a little confusing. What I would like to mention first is those types of signs are color-coded. So you see the orange dots, those are the wayfinding signs for directions, like showing here is the parking, like showing here is the library, here's the school, here's the hospital. So those are the direction wayfinding signs. And those are actually pole signs. I'll show you here in a second what it looks like. We actually do have a few that's already been established. And the green dot, those are parking ID signs. And the types of these signs are monument signs. And I also will show you the type of the sign, what it looks like here in a second. So we do have one parking sign being planned, particularly in this wayfinding sign. And we have 7 wayfinding signs for directions. And then the last kind of sign is the blue dot, and that is also a parking ID sign, but that is a pole mount sign. So keep in mind, the orange is the direction sign, the green and blue are the parking signs. And whereas the orange and blue, they are pole signs, and the green is the monument sign. So here is what you see for the pole signs. These are the details for the contents of the poles, and these are the ones location 3, C, E, F that has already been installed. So if you walk on Armour Road in downtown area, you will see them, and you will know how tall they are. They're generally about 14.5 foot tall and about 4 foot wide. So they're in a very human scale and also compromising the driver's scale as well when you go down Armour Road. So these are the direction signs, and the other side of the direction signs, that's branding with NKC. Here's the green sign, which is the parking monument sign. We currently don't have any parking monument signs being installed. They're supposed to be about 6 foot tall and about, I believe, 3 foot wide. So these parking signs, we also have map kiosk that can be designed along these monument signs. If you have ever been to like River Market area, you'll see they have map kiosk right by those streetcar stations. So it'll be similar to that theme. It would provide directions for drivers and informations or in commercial contents there as well. And then the parking pole sign is the one on your right hand. It's very similar to the design of the direction signs, but they're designed particularly for directions for public parking spaces. Here are some details of the map kiosk I would like to show you in a scale with a real human over there. And then the last portion I want to mention is the cost of the signage. So the gateway signage, for those four we have not installed, they're about $210,000 per gateway signage. And then the wayfinding signage for the parking pole signs and the directional signs, they're about $16,000, $10, and $100 per piece. And the map kiosk and the parking monument signs are potentially about $18,500 per piece. And then, again, one of the parking signs that we have already been in discussion with the Star Signs, that company who helped us to design and install them for the public parking behind Screenland area, that's $11,100. So these are the most up-to-date price that I got from Star Signs for these particular styles that's recommended in our signage master plan.
They do a bulk discount.
I asked them that. I did ask them, can we buy one, get one free?
I mean, I'll take one,
and
buy one,
she
get one
warned
10% off
me.
at this rate. Gee.
And then she warned me, these are priced for 2022.
And they last 2 million years, I hope. Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Saber.
Okay. Thank you for the updates and breaking down the plan for us. I don't believe anyone sitting up here was around for the branding exercise. I will go ahead and register my discontent with the slogan. That's not really a thing here. But as far as the signs go, the cost has become outrageous. I don't know what it was in 2014. It might have been 75 to 100,000 per sign, and now we're looking at $250,000 roughly per sign by the time we get around to them. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. It's the only sign that I've seen mocked up as far as gateway signage is the one that comes across the 9 Highway Bridge, crossing the river into North Kansas City, which we already have a sign there, but it's a little dated, a little faded. That is the only one of the gateway signs that makes much sense to me, especially at the price points we're looking at. As far as the other signs, I really don't see wayfinding. I know we've installed a few. I just don't see wayfinding being useful in today's environment where if somebody's coming to North Kansas City, they're going to come here to go to a football game or they're coming from out of town. If they don't already know where things are, they're punching it into Google Maps and they're going to follow their map. They're not going to be cruising down Armour and look at a sign and be like, oh, shoot, I should go down there and check out this park. The wayfinding signage that I think would be useful are the ones that point to public parking lots. So having those, and not necessarily the ones with the maps, because I'm not certain the usefulness of a 6-foot tall sign with a small map for a driver. I know they can help pedestrians, but they're not looking for a parking lot. So the public parking signs, I think, can have some use, but I would be like really against spending that much money on the big gateway signs, especially the one that, like, I think the next one up on the T is the one at 35 and Armour, which is like right in the middle of the city, oddly, as a gateway sign, kind of cuts off Ward 4, which they're pretty important. So I don't know. I would gauge the rest of the council's feelings on these, but I just don't see it anymore.
Councilmember Saper.
Yeah, I'd like to heartily endorse all of that and say that it's not clear to me how how wayfinder signs really provide any useful benefit to them. Certainly not the kind that we're proposing here. And the cost is, I agree, outrageous. I don't see $1 million worth of benefit to the businesses, to the residents, let alone any potential visitors. And it seems like this is one of those ideas that has come around and it's time for it to go. Simple as that.
Councilmember Roberts. Councilmember Fitzgerald. Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, well, first of all, nobody here likes that slogan. I think when it was unveiled, we were like, no, really? That's what we did? All right. The gateway signs are just, they kind of look like a college campus to me. It's kind of weird, and where their space is just kind of like a weird flex that we're doing for the whole city. When you think of people in Kansas City, Missouri driving around, seeing, most people drive through our city. They would just be like, why all of a sudden is North Kansas City flexing so hard on their boundaries? Because that's what it looks like we're doing. But it also looks like a college campus, so I just don't see, collectively, the Wayfinder signs and the Gateway signs are the River Forest Park we just approved, which is a very useful thing to the citizens. The one thing I would like to see is there's still no parking signs for public parking in the church. So every time I tell somebody, they don't believe me because there's no parking signs whatsoever around it that says when it's useful. I would like to see that. It would have been really helpful, I think, with construction on Armor Road, that those signs would have been put up anywhere. We've made do without it, but I do think when we look at Wayfinder signs, I will say, I know nobody here, I don't think, is the designer of these. When those got put up, I thought that those were temporary because they look like the design of them, the art, so to speak, looks like corroded metal. It doesn't look like a good modern design. And then when I see the new landscape coming to fruition, it doesn't match anything. Like you have wood-looking furniture with nice-looking brick, and then corroded signs with nice metal. You just have it's like 4 people designed out there, and I'm sure it's because it's been done in phases, but I think that before we install more of these, I think we should look to matching the look and feel of all of downtown and not this kind of bizarre corroded looking signs. If you guys have seen them, I tried to get a good photo of them, but it's really hard to tell. It just looks brown, which nothing else in the entire landscape down there is brown. I think if we're going to do Wayfinder signs, which I think can be helpful for parking, I agree we don't need maps, but I do think we should rethink the look of them because it doesn't match anything we're putting in currently.
All right. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
At this point, I think I'm just echoing what's already been said, but if I calculate this right, it looks like we're showing $850,000 for finishing out 4 years of the Gateway signs. It seems like a lot of money if the goal is to advertise the cities here. There might be a better or more cost-effective solution to that would benefit more residents and businesses. On the wayfinding signs, I'm a little more indifferent. I would agree it'd be better if they matched the rest of the decor, and parking signs would be useful.
Thank you, Councilmember Graves.
Much of what I was going to say has been covered, so I'll try to go fast here for time's sake. I just wrote some notes when I was looking at the pictures of the signage, and I wrote down they're cold, they have no character, they don't stand out. As Councilmember Roberts pointed out, these ones that are like brown, there's actually some of them around town, and I bet people haven't noticed them. So I've actually seen one and been like, oh, wow, where'd that come from? It's completely random. You can drive by and not even see it. They're not unique or memorable. They're bland. They really don't represent North Kansas City in any way. They have no character reflection of our town. So in a broader sense, I think that we should just throw this away and completely do a new branding of the city. I think I've never met anyone that actually likes this branding. So if we're going to spend, especially this sum of money, I'm not against spending money on signage, but it's signage that makes sense, that actually reflects the character of our community and looks good and is memorable and unique and things like that. But this is really just depressing, and we spend money on things sometimes where I just scratch my head. Because then sometimes there's things that really are cool ideas, and we act like we don't have the money for them. And this is a perfect example of a massive sum of money being spent on something that I don't think would benefit the community. Councilmember Roberts did mention something that's actually very important, in that we do need parking signage. And I just want to add a note in regard to, I know wards 1 and 3 have issues surrounding the high school with parking. And I've suggested in the past, and I'll bring it up again, I think we do need signage for parking in relation to the high school. There is parking available for the high school and for high school activities. And I think a lot of parents and people that visit for football games and things park in areas that aren't ideal for the neighborhood, when if there was signage and they knew that parking was available for high school, then they might actually utilize those spaces. There's times when I can walk by the high school parking lot and there's massive amounts of open spaces available, but 26th Avenue literally has people parking in yards and on sidewalks, and it's just a disaster. So I would like to, if we're going to use signage and wayfinding, like I would like to direct people toward the proper parking. And then another thing that's free, I don't know how to do this, I'm not very tech savvy, but you know, when you use an app, like when I'm going somewhere, use Google Maps or whatever map software you use, you know, if you are going to the high school or going to such and such, is there a way that we can peg, instead of directing them to the high school, can we direct them to the high school parking lot? So instead of them being, their map taking them to 23rd and Gentry, it actually directed them to, here's where you actually park your vehicle, so that there's not, if that makes sense. So actually direct people to proper parking spaces and not the actual location itself. Like if you wanted to go to Screenland Armor, direct them to the parking lot behind Screenland Armor. That makes sense. So that's it.
I will say, just on the school part, obviously, you're talking a much broader city. I do know they send a lot of times to the away teams some detailed maps saying, hey, try to get these lots. Always touch on the neighborhood things. Don't block driveways. Don't do this and that. You know, I don't know how many people read those things. They just throw it in the app and go. Councilmember Toll.
I had my own comments, but I want to add something to the high school. Those spaces are numbered, so I think if they would even post a sign about when you have to use those numbers. Does that make sense, Wes? Exactly, that you're allowed to park there after hours for these games, because being numbered makes people feel like, I can't be there. I agree with parking. One thing I would caution is the large, nice parking signs that we're looking at are expensive, and I believe the church lot is rented. So I think coming back in with the large signs, giving a general area, and the less expensive signs right on the lot saying you can park here, because the fact that they're rented, that could change. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm going to be the dissenting opinion because I am a fan of gateway signage. As far as saying flexing for this is where our boundaries are, I do like the idea of saying you've entered North Kansas City, you're here. I don't know if off the highway is really up on I-35, I think was unnecessary, but coming in from the north, the south, east, and then they have the other one that's down. I'm also a fan of the archway that we've already put in. I think defining where North Kansas City does build community and allows us to see the city boundaries. I'm a fan. The signs themselves, you know, I think the drawings that you have here are not necessarily the same as what they ended up looking like. But I can tell that I'm greatly outnumbered in my views on marking our boundaries and showing where our city lies.
To her point, I'll say the archway it seemed very successful in delineating North Kansas City from other areas, and it's become quite the image for articles and everything else, as you always see it pop up all the time. We do often talk about branding and identity, and at some point, I guess, what is that worth? How do you do that? What is that worth? And that's really a council decision. I saw that. Okay, Clark hasn't gone. Councilmember Clark. Then we'll go back around to.
Obviously, so much has been said. I am a fan of. I guess it's the flex of. Definitely identifying beyond Ward 4 over there at Choteau. That was exciting to see that portion, because I was like, oh, look, that includes my people. We're in there. We're like well tucked away in there. So I'm actually a big fan of like that area. Sure, we can revisit the look and design. I mean, I honestly didn't mind just saying North Kansas City, but I get it. There might be more and better options, and it doesn't feel like it has the home cooked meal feel, I guess, of North Kansas City. I don't know if we should have like churning butter, do like a Schitt's Creek thing, but no. Of the ones, if we were to keep, I would say that one feels pretty important. The ones way over on the other side, because I don't think people know when they're sort of entering into North Kansas City. I think that's a good little differentiator there, more so than even. Coming over the bridge, you get a pretty good sense and idea. You see this little town here. But coming in on 210, you don't really know when you've kind of crossed the boundaries. So, yeah, I mean, I can echo. a lot of the comments on design, I guess I'm not that particular about the design. I don't feel like married to it, nor do I feel like I'm going to miss it if it goes away. So that's it.
I noticed one of those, we were coming back from Liberty the other day. I guess that'd be one south there, one of those old purplish ones. I mean, those aren't pretty either. So it'd be nice to see something a little fresher up there. Councilmember Smith.
I do agree about the branding and the identity crisis that we have as a city. I mean, unfortunately, we're in Kansas City, who already people think we're in Kansas, and then we're in a direction plus Kansas City, so then we're just directionally north of Kansas City. I would love to see, and we're going on almost a decade of this last branding exercise. I would actually like to see a rebranding exercise where we kind of figure out how we identify our town with something other than cardinal direction plus the neighboring city, and just get a whole campaign around that. And then rather than physically delineating at great expense where the boundaries are, working on some kind of digital identity, because so many people in the area, when they're looking for something, use maps. They use map software or apps to identify where they're going. And if it's going to the branded place, like Northtown gets thrown around all the time. I really love the term Northtown. But if they know they're going to Northtown and it is that space that we see right here on the map, that could be very helpful rather than cardinal direction plus Kansas City.
We're going to change the whole city name.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
North Kansas City, but sometimes Northtown. There.
I just have one more thing to add, which is, it was already stated that nobody on council was here when this started in 2014. And I am always very hesitant to squash something that another council has started that we're very deep into the process of doing. By the time we finish this project, the council will look different. And that is one of the challenges of being North Kansas City, the small city that we are, is the staff is working with direction from council. And as council changes and we change direction in the middle of a multi-year project, it's very costly. And you end up with things not going together. So we already have an investment that's here, and I would like to build on that and keep going forward if we can.
All right, here we go. We'll save a consultant. New tagline. North Kansas City, not Kansas City North. There we go. What else? Okay, so I'm hearing not a severe split. Actually, I kind of did hear a split because I heard some yeses on wayfinding signage, while at the same time not liking gateway signage. What do we have slated for next year initially? Can you pull that back up again? I think that's the important, oh, here we go. FY23, no. What's in the budget now? FY23 is what we're talking about tonight. 22 is right? The pylon, okay. So I guess one question would be whether or not we want to proceed with that in the year ahead.
So the reason we put this particular one in fiscal year 23 is because we already have the piece of land. And so we know we can establish this monument sign with much of a hassle or land acquisition or right-of-way acquisition.
Then let me look at it more broadly here then. Okay, do we want to consider any gateway signage? Whether this design or new design in the next fiscal year would be a question.
I would say no.
Councilmember Graves.
I think we got enough going on right now around here, and I also think that, to Councilmember Toll's point, I actually like gateway signage, I just don't like this signage. So if you're doing something and you're deep in the process and you don't like how it's going down, I don't see a point in continuing further just because that's a sunken cost fallacy. And so I think at this point we should pause until I think we all agree that we need to rebrand, come up with a new look before we proceed.
Should we look at sign design specifically, I guess, then? That one aspect
I
that
would
you're
like to
talking
say
about.
that we don't all agree.
Yeah. Okay. So we're saying no gateway signage or maybe look at sign design again?
Pause.
Pause. I hear pause. I hear one pause.
I agree with what Councilmember Graves said. We got to create our identity, which we are doing right now with the bike plan, with the downtown streetscape. I think we look at this in a year once we see what the city looks like. It's changing so quickly.
Okay.
And whatever we do right now is 3 or 4 different pieces put together. And I think we all agree we should pause. There's 3 different pieces here. whether we want it or not, it doesn't go, none of these things don't even match each other. You just showed me two different things that don't even go in the same, color wheel together.
I'll say, I hear pause gateway signage.
I say pause all of it. The
Okay,
wayfinding
wayfinding
doesn't
signage
even
and parking
match.
signage. Well, parking was included with wayfinding signage as well, and I seem to hear a lot of support for parking. That's all I wanted.
Parking
address
sign,
that
yes,
separate.
but this specific design doesn't match anything. We should at least be matching the aesthetics. Wayfinding, I think we all agree with it, but
Saper's got two hands up.
Yeah, two hands up. I think most of us, when we travel around looking at other cities and places, we look for signs. And some of those signs can be relatively small, like traffic signs on a post, parking there with an arrow, theater there. You don't have to have these very expensive and somewhat outrageously costly signs to satisfy the needs of people. Does it meet people's needs, or is it just part of the picture postcard syndrome that really is ineffective and doesn't benefit anyone? And I think that's the case with what's been proposed in the past.
So back to the last question, we'd be on board with wayfinding with a new design, simplified, explore. Yeah, that's okay.
I mean, I would support exploring a fresher design on parking wayfinding signage, not the same, like Adam has called, like the rusted metal look. I mean, that might have been the look in 2014, I don't know, but something that is, cohesive with our downtown streetscape, that fits in and that will direct people to appropriate public spaces, because that's one of our big needs right now. Somebody can punch Google Maps and say, I want to go to Screenland Armor, but when they get there, now they can look up and see, okay, there's a sign that says I can park here.
I think Councilmember Graves is correct, and when they put the sign up, it was behind a tree originally, now that the tree's been removed, but it was fully behind it. You couldn't even read it when you drove in, which was comical, because it was supposed to show you where to park. And now, like, when you can see the sign, but it's so dark, you can't read it before you pass it. There's no visibility, it's just kind of an afterthought of
Install
a
the LED
design.
lights.
Yeah, there's no light on it,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no anything, so if you're gonna do directions, you need to have lights and a design you can see in a millisecond when you're driving.
Thank you. Is that pretty clear there? We got good direction going forward. What specifically are you looking for here?
I would like to remind everybody that what we have now, and I would like to confirm. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Tall.
Please.
That's what I was going to say, is if we come back with something else, first, we'll have to spend the money on exploring it. And then if we come back with something else, we have already spent the money on the signs listed here. But I know I've seen the sign in front of Screenland. You couldn't see it when there was a tree, and now there's no tree, but there'll be a tree again. So the placement was questionable. But one more direction, I think we've already talked about it, is I would expand the view of parking signs. The big signs are lovely for the main street, but I think we need lots of smaller, inexpensive signs right where the lot is.
What kind of, I think we have a couple up, like on this lot back here. The
We
blue and
don't at
orange
the
ones.
church, which is what he just brought up.
Which,
We have a lot of lots that we've rented, and I don't think those are well posted that people can park there and what times they can park there.
I think there's one for this, the one behind the buffet, the Chinese buffet right here. Yeah, and I think the one sign maybe faces in towards the lot and not out, which is a great help. Yeah. I think this, if you enter from this way, I think it faces out this way. If you enter from the Fayette, I believe it, I noticed that one night, late night, when I was walking through there. It actually points in towards the lot, which doesn't help drivers.
The last thing as the lone person that's disagreeing with everyone up here, that I want to point out is that starting over will cost a significant amount of money.
Did we pay a lot for sign design? Did we pay for sign design on this? What was?
Yes.
Was that
I
all part
believe
of? Was
we
that all
paid
part of
for
this?
it because
I didn't know if they just mocked those up or.
because we have a signage plan, and that was down by Confluence back in 2016. If you get to the website, and also I linked it to the end of this memo, that is the signage plan that Confluence helped the city to conduct it. And that part is not just come up with conceptual designs and having the city council vote on it. As far as I remember, when I read through the plan, there was excessive amount of engagement between the public and the advisory committee. At that time, the advisory committee was the council at that point, that they work closely with the design group. So there definitely is a cost associated with this plan. I would agree with Councilmember Tall that if you were to start over and wanted to redo the branding and maybe come up with a new signage plan, itself will come up with a price tag. And I do want to remind you that we do have 4 pole signs that's already being installed. That's the ones Councilmember Roberts mentioned that they don't light up and you cannot see them at night. There's vision issues, but these are the ones that was recommended through this plan particularly. And our parking pole signs has the same design theme, just with different contents. So I would recommend you to, or not recommend, I would like you to give me a clear direction about what we want to see for the parking signage if we were to do it in this upcoming fiscal year. Do you want to see the same kind of design, maybe just exploring options to have it light up at night because it's a parking sign? But keep in mind a pole sign for parking lots, or do you want to see those like more of a directional sign, like a traditional directional sign that's probably about 8.5 by 11, like with the particular details of parking directions, open hours, and all that? What kind of directions you're giving me here? I would like to confirm
Have the
that.
elementary school draw signs and we'll just tape them up.
I mean,
Councilmember Smith.
aren't there like standard conventions of like parking signs are generally blue? So like people glance up and look for blue when they're looking in a new area for parking. This doesn't tell me, like if I saw this sign, I wouldn't immediately think, especially if it's dark, that I'm looking at a parking sign. So something that follows more of the standard conventional norms, but also looks like it blends in with the look and feel. Yeah, and lines up. Yeah, and
Or close to
something
existing
we
LED
see.
lights. Councilmember Saper.
We do have street lighting, and placement of the sign could take advantage of that so that they're not in the dark, and instead of just putting them, I don't know how they were placed or what considerations went into their placement, but it was ill thought, and as much of this project has been over the years. So there are ways you could put up simple signs and place them so that street lights actually illuminate them naturally, and as they light up the streets and sidewalks.
All right.
And that would minimize much of the cost. And as far as the cost involved with redoing it all, putting more good money after a bad idea is never a good idea.
Further councilmember comments? Okay.
One of the things we've been discussing that we want to make sure you all were aware of, that this is the same style that's been incorporated into the Burlington design, the whole track. So just so you know, as you're discussing this, and
I mean, I'm not really a hater on the signs, but I'm in the minority here.
just wanted to make you aware of that whole, and that's from 14th to, or 10th to, no, 14th to,
It's from 14th all the way to
32nd.
32nd.
Beautiful.
so, I know, just so you know.
Councilmember Saper. No, I'm kidding. All right, what else we got for now? Okay, we gonna do signs 2.0 here coming up? Is this?
Okay. Well, thank you for your directions. I'll look at it again. And
There we go.
hopefully we'll get back to talk about it again.
Perfect. With that, thank you. With that, we will adjourn this meeting and reconvene at 7:09. Start our regular session. Boom. It rolled over to 04 just in time.